Strenuous told me I'm a beautiful boy. I didn't ask for that power. I just seek and destroy. Not proving everyone wrong, cause I'm doing it right. See, I'm goodness by day, but I'm badness by night. Tell me what's wrong, why you hurting the boy? Why you hurting the boy? Why you hurting the boy? Tell me what's wrong, why you hurting the boy? Why you hurting the boy? Why you hurting the boy?
Gradual, it was over time, it was severe, and it was hundreds of times. It went on for so long, and in so many ways. I mean, he violated this in his truck, he violated this in his house, he violated this on the farm.
Charles A. Jack Walls III was born into privilege as the son of a prominent attorney who later became a well-respected county judge in Lonoke, Arkansas. Jack married his high school sweetheart and had 3 beautiful daughters. He was a manager for a firearms and ammunition manufacturer and lived in a small, affluent, close-knit community where he was a respected, trusted friend and Boy Scout leader. Under Jack's guidance, Boy Scout Troop 103 of Lonoke excelled, and he was voted Man of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. Underneath the Man of the Year lurked an evil predator hiding in the midst of Lonoke, Arkansas. For decades, Uncle Jack used his position in the community to seduce and ensnare young boys with a dangerous attention. But how was one of these victims driven to murder? Hello, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed, the place we honor the dead, right from my she shed. Make sure you smash the subscribe button to keep up with all my rarely discussed true crime. Right here with little me, this southern gal, right here in my Murder She Shed, usually 2 times weekly. First, before we begin this case, viewer discretion is advised due to content involving the essay of children, so this is your warning. In its heyday, in the 1970s, there were more than 6.5 million Scouts in Boy Scouts of America, a robust 112-year-old national organization focused on building boys into strong, capable, and caring young men.
A bunch of kids looking for action. So what's doing out on the street? Is this the way we ought to use our boy power? Think about it. America's manpower begins with boy power. Let's not waste it. Be a volunteer worker with the Boy Scouts.
But unfortunately, like any group involving children, you can count on predators sliming their way in order to find prey. And the Boy Scouts became a breeding ground for these predators. Scoutmasters provided the Boy Scouts with tools and skills that followed them through adulthood and become like a brother or father figure to these young, impressionable boys. 2021, the Boy Scouts of America reached an $850 million settlement with more than 60,000 men who sued over alleged essay by Scoutmasters. The worst Scoutmaster to ever prey on children from Arkansas was Jack Walls. Lonoke, Arkansas, a small town just outside Little Rock, greets all who enters with the sign declaring itself to be a life as it should be type of community. Jack Walls lived with his wife and 3 daughters in Lonoke and was a Scoutmaster for 22 years. Jack was the answer for alarmed parents as they began having trouble with their growing sons. He was regarded as a pillar of the community, and the parents of Lonoke turned to Jack to help in raising their young sons. One of the neighbors of the Walls family farm would often see Jack pass her house with young boys hanging all over Jack's old Ford pickup. And she would say to herself, "What a guy, what a nice guy." The whole community felt like Uncle Jack was a great role model to young boys. There was a common thread among the boys whom Jack befriended and led astray. Learning disabilities or an already troubled relationship with their parents allowed Jack's entry into their lives and families. Jack made time to spend with these boys when their own parents could not. He would take them out to his family farm to shoot guns, hunt snakes and wildlife, and blow up beaver dens, using his experience with explosives from Vietnam. And there were campouts also at the secluded family farm. These campouts were filled with the Boy Scouts of Lonoke, but only some were allowed entry into Jack's elite group called the Order of the Arrow. It was this group that Jack would gather around the campfire to talk about their lives, what was missing, and what their interests were. He kept detailed notes of his conversations so he could become those missing parts and the champion of their interests. He wanted to build his trust with these young boys. He would lavish these Boy Scouts with praise, time, and attention until they were putty in his hands. Uncle Jack would also friend the Boy Scouts' parents, becoming a trusting help with their young sons. Uncle Jack's favorite thing to do was to take the Scouts camping. While parents thought Jack was teaching their sons skills to survive in the outdoors, Jack actually was acting out his sinister plan for the boys. Little did these boys know that Jack used the special camping trips to select his next victims. From these campouts, Jack would select a special few to join his Order of the Arrow, which required initiation. This special initiation meant you had sex with Jack. On these Orders of the Arrow trips, Jack would get boys drunk, use their vulnerability to molest, fondle these boys. He even made Scouts perform acts on each other as he watched. He solicited children to take images of himself, or he took images of the children. He also forced children to watch or read dirty material. He once told the boys he had paid a hired lady named Betty to come to his house, and she was going to give. So when the boys came to his house, he said, "I have to blindfold you boys because Betty doesn't want you to see her." But after they were blindfolded, it was Jack himself that did the deed. While on these trips, he would always remember to threaten to kill any boy who told what occurred on these camping trips. He taunted them with lies, saying that no one would ever believe them if they told. In one case, he forced children to dig a hole in the ground and said it would be their grave if they ever spoke out against him. He even put one scared boy in a hole at a dumpster and threw some dirt over him, letting him know this is what was going to happen if he told anyone. On December 29, 1992, 16-year-old Doug Hogan was on a camping trip with Boy Scout Troop 103 and Scoutmaster Jack. As Doug laid in front of the campfire that night about to drift off after him and two other scouts had been given alcohol by Jack, Jack laid down by Doug with his head at Doug's feet. Jack reached up and began unbuckling Doug's belt. But Doug refused his advancements and kept telling him no. Jack did not give up, though, so Doug got up, woke the other two Boy Scouts up who were asleep in their tent, and told them what Jack was doing. The three boys went to Doug's truck to leave, but Jack stopped them by taking the keys from the ignition. The boys knew Jack had a gun and was very angry, so they locked themselves inside the truck that night, scared to death that Jack might shoot them. But the next morning, Jack did allow the boys to leave. Their parents questioned their early return home, and it was then that Doug began to tell his father, Cletus Hogan, what had happened the night before. His father, Cletus, confronted Jack and forced him to write a letter of apology, telling Jack he would not turn him over to authorities if he did this, but really he was going to go to authorities with the letter, hoping it would prove his guilt. The letter was just a vague apology, though, in which later Jack told police they had a small argument that night, and that is what he was apologizing for in the letter. Jack claimed he had only hit Doug on the belt buckle with the back of his hand after their argument. Nothing else happened. He was innocent. After investigating, police determined that the action of the suspect in this case did not constitute a crime. Jack's letter was enough to get him kicked out of Boy Scouts, though, at least temporarily until he was able to falsify his name. Certain people from the town claimed that the Hogans were only after Jack's money when they took him to court. Jack's father was wealthy and owned half the buildings in downtown Lonoke. During the trial, Jack was able to convince many of the Boy Scouts to stand up for him, and the town began to believe that Doug had only made up the allegations that night in order for his family to receive some financial compensations. Jack was found innocent of all charges, and this allowed him to become more brave around the boys, feeling that between his daddy's money and his trusted status in the community, he could get away with whatever he wanted. Jack's sister believed he was completely innocent of any of these charges, and that the Hogans only wanted money too. Jack had convinced her that he was innocent. But what she didn't know is that Jack had also been SIing her own son, Wade Knox. Of the Knox children, Wade was the youngest and was by far the most troubled. Since the age of 5, the young boy had major issues socially and academically. He threw tantrums, had no respect for authority, and had numerous accidents. In kindergarten, Wade was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADD. His parents knew he would have to face enormous obstacles in his life. Wade seemed to be filled with anger, and his parents just couldn't understand why. Uncle Jack would take him on camping trips in order to help him with his anger and help the parents out. The Knox were at a loss at what to do with their son, and they felt that Jack was helping them when he would take them on camping trips or go retrieve him when the boy ran away. They felt he was only helping. They didn't understand that's why Wade was running away. Heath Carlton Stocks was another one of Jack's victims. After Jack befriended Heath's parents, he was able to use Heath's father's name in order to become a scoutmaster once again. By all accounts, Heath grew up as most boys do, rambunctious and unpredictable. His family, Mother Barbara, Father Joe, and Sister Heather, were as practical as any other Southern family. Good, salt-of-the-earth kind of folks. Appearances make for lovely Christmas cards and social gatherings. However, the Stocks family facade tended to evaporate once behind closed doors. Joe Stocks, the father, was often away from home as a truck driver. Joe did not spare the rod when it came to disciplining Heath. Punishments were extreme, both verbally and physically. A major divide between father and son resulted in Joe entering Heath in the Boy Scouts under the direction of none other than Jack. At the age of 10, Heath had become a favored scout to Jack. To ensure his chosen status, Heath adhered to Jack's every demand, and upon being essayed at the Boy Scout campout, his acceptance into the Order of the Arrow was sealed. Heath felt like it was the only positive attention he ever received, so he just put up with the negative part of the relationship. Jack had become a second father to Heath. Pitting father against son, Jack ensured his place in Heath's life, as well as a trustworthy guardian for Joe. The stage was set, paving the way to destruction. At the age of 13, Heath became the subject of essay once more at the hands of his dance instructor. Heath's mom, Barbara, recommended charges be filed upon learning of the dance instructor's abuse, but none were ever filed. Heath's world was becoming increasingly confusing, with the only guidance being from Jack, his other abuser. Jack taught him how to sharpshoot and how to make explosives. He would discuss with Heath that sometimes it is okay to kill people in order to protect those you love. When Heath left for college, some distance was placed between he and Jack, but that was only miles. Every move Heath made, every girl he became interested in, everything was to be approved by Jack. He had to tell exactly what happened on every day. The bond was not diminished. At the time when teens begin the steps toward independence by venturing off to college, the opportunity to denounce Jack was there. He simply was too blind to comprehend the freedom available. Besides, it was only Jack who cared. Who abandons those who love them most? In early January 1997, Heath's mom discovered Heath and Jack together. Although she did not confront Heath, she did request a visit with her pastor for guidance concerning what she had witnessed, with Jack in bed with her son. She did not confront him. That's unbelievable to me, because I would have I'm not going to say what I'd done, because YouTube will probably kick me off of here if I say what I would have done. Can't imagine not doing anything if I'd seen that. So basically, she just went to her pastor. But ultimately, he told his mom and sister about Jack. Jack was outraged at the betrayal he had received by Heath. There was no undoing what he had done, and the only viable solution was to kill the problem he had created. Jack told Heath he had betrayed him. Now everyone would know. For many years, Jack had instilled this mantra. Jack's protection was every boy's ultimate goal. At 20 years of age, all the years of abuse by Jack would come to a head for Heath. Heath did not want the only man who had ever showed him any attention to end up in prison, so he knew what he had to do in order to fix the problem. That was to kill his family. On the night of January 17, 1997, before his sister and parents came home, he stuck a in his mouth thinking about unaliving himself in order to save himself for what he knew he had to do that night. Instead, he ended up staging the house as if it was a robbery and shooting his sister, mother, and father as they entered the house. His sister did not immediately die and was able to call 911 before passing away without ever speaking a word. But this was enough to make authorities show up at the house and find the 3 dead and Heath missing.
I've been home from college. I had been home for several months at that point, and had been looking for a job. I hadn't been able to find one. So I came home after going out to eat with my grandparents, and the house was ransacked. And it was going to happen. I could either participate and be a part of it, or I could die right there with them. Heather came home first from the game. She came in, she looked around the house, and she asked me if we'd been robbed. And I begged her to leave, to go, to get out. In my mind, I was thinking I was going to, help her to get out. Then I see the car pull up, the van pull up. Mom and Dad are home. Mom comes in. I see her go into the kitchen. I'm in the living room. The lights out. She starts screaming, and she screams, "Joe!" And my dad turns around and looks at me and screams, and started at me. And so I took a step back, and I shot. And he kept coming, and I shot again. And he fell, and he kept trying to crawl and get to me. And I shot again. And then I'm standing there. And I see Dad, he's laid down, there's Mom, there's Heather, there's Mom.
Heath has only recently said that Jack was at that house. And actually, Jack helped him stage the robbery. Not only that, he says that Jack shot his sister and mother, whereas he says he still shot the dad. But I don't know if any of that's true. You can just take that with a grain of salt because that just came out recently in his statement. So don't know absolutely if that's true. Heath was on the run, but they quickly caught up to him. And even though he confessed to the murders, he never spoke a word about Uncle Jack's involvement in his life as he sat in prison with Jack walking around as a free man.
I didn't want to die. I didn't want them to die. I just wanted him to feel the pain he made me feel, but I was never good enough for him.
Heath, did you shoot your dad?
Yes.
What happened with your mom and Heather?
I just saw him and I just shot.
They got hit while you were shooting?
I love them.
Take your time.
I love them so much.
Wade Knox, Jack's nephew, finally ended Jack's freedom not long after Heath was arrested. Just before Wade's senior year of high school, Wade retrieved a gun out of his dad's side and brought Jack to his parents at gunpoint and told him to confess to what he had been doing to him or he would die. Jack admitted to essaying his nephew. Wade had been the young boy he had buried and dug up in order to keep him silent, his own nephew. In 1998, Jack Walls III pled guilty to 5 counts and no contest to 1 count of rape. Heath Stocks. He was eventually sentenced to 3 life terms plus 3 40-year terms to be served concurrently. Wade would never recover. There was just so much trauma. He developed paranoid schizophrenia. Jack had created such a fear in him, he constantly had nightmares. He developed voices. Wade continued to live in fear that Jack would somehow return for him. College was out of the question for the teenager. He simply couldn't cope. He continued to live with his parents but had trouble holding a job and finding his way in life. He would tell his family he's going to Walmart and wouldn't be back for a while. Instead, he would disappear for 2 to 3 days at a time. When he came back, he had no memory of what had happened during that time. He had completely blocked it out. He was very suspicious of people. He became extremely paranoid and was constantly worrying about his parents' safety. This was because of the constant threats he had always received from Jack. For Heath Stocks, the effects of a decade of SA resulted in the murders of his own family members at his own hands. Heath confessed to the murders and is currently serving 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. For Wade Knox, however, the SA led to his death. Wade's sister had just had a baby, and Knox planned to stay with their daughter and their new little grandbaby for a couple of days. Wade assured them that he was just fine. Others had promised to check in on Wade during their absence, but the ghost that haunted Wade returned, and Karen received a phone call at her daughter's home. Wade had unalived himself. He was only 23 years old. These young boys never stood a chance against Jack Wall's evil ways. He was a monster hiding in plain sight, a monster that will always haunt the memories of the Boy Scouts of Lonoke, Arkansas, a monster that I can't even get out of my mind. Horrible man.
It's so hard to explain to people and help them understand what it was like to have gone through that for 10 years and to believe that it was coming to an end, and then realize not only did I fail to stop the abuse, but my abuse ended up getting my whole family killed.
For now, all signs point to Stocks living out the rest of his life here at Tucker Max, with a lifelong connection to one of the most controversial cases in the state.
It was said that he SA'd over 100 to 150 boys. There's boys out there living with this now. Boys that's never recovered from what this evil monster did to them. It's sad that he destroyed so much that he touched. Why are people even born and just ruin humanity? I don't even know why they are even on earth. I was SA'd as a child, and so these kind of cases really infuriate me. I was SA'd by a neighbor when I was like 6 years old. So when I come across these cases, they just make me so angry that these monsters can exist and be allowed to do this kind of stuff again and again and hardly have to pay for what they did. Just sad. It's just sad. And if there's anybody out there that is struggling from the trauma of this happening to them, I hope you go find help, find counseling. Trust me, it really does help. I had counseling. I have a long story about that. I blocked it out and blocked it out and blocked it out, and I became an adult, and I got on drugs, and it's a long, long story. But after I ended up in jail, then I was be able to get counseling that I finally needed and be able to overcome all that. Just had to be able to face it, talk about it to somebody, and be able to release all that anger and stress out of our lives, and it helps us to heal. So if you need help, please go get help. Don't do it the way I did it. That was not fun. Do it the easier way, okay? Please, I beg of you to do it the easier way. I am so glad and happy to be 8 years clean now, though. Anyway, love y'all, and hope y'all have a blessed week, and hope y'all had a great 4th of July. And please get help if you need help from any trauma. Love y'all. And then Simon wants to tell y'all bye. Say bye to them, okay? Say bye, I'm a good boy, and I'm going to breathe in Mama's mic because I can. Bye-bye. Love y'all. Have a great, blessed week. Bye. And lived in a small, affluent, close-knit. Let me catch my breath. I've been running so fast lately. Charles A. Jack Walls and ensnared. Oh my God, dang it. Fort knockers. Fort knockers. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, I'm good. She shed the place. We honor the dead right from my shit shed. Shit shed. Here I go again. In Boy Scouts of America. A robust. Why are you so mean, huh? Why are you so mean? What are you coming for? He's always a blooper. He's a giant blooper by himself. Just beautiful. Look at the camera. 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 Bye. See ya.
Stranger once told me I'm a beautiful boy. I didn't ask for that power. I just seek and destroy. Not proving everyone wrong, guess I'm doing it right. See, I'm goodness by day, but I'm badness by night. Tell me what's wrong, why you hurting?